Hello, artists. How are you today? It's Stephanie Aune coming to you once again here from the banks of the Trinity River. Ozzy and I are very happy you are here with us today. Thanks so much for stopping by. We are in a new altered book. This is an ABC inspired book, and I kind of decided to go with metaphors. Yeah, which is kind of crazy. I knew I wanted to do some loose, fun styled drawing and painting, and just to kind of it just all worked together that I was just coming up with these crazy metaphors and thought how much fun that would be. So first off, what you've seen me do here is I put down some base ephemera and just trying to create some texture and trying to just kind of get a feeling for the page. And then I put down some white gesso over the top of it, and I'm trying to leave some of that ephemera showing because I think it gives a lot of interest. You don't see a lot of it in the end, but alright, now I decided for A, we need some aqua paint. Aqua! So, just trying to still kind of follow in on that to pull that ABC theme through it. It's like I could do that with colors too, except I don't know what colors would start with X. But there's quinacridone, magenta, so there's definitely a lot of the letters can be covered with colors. That'll be challenging. I might need some suggestions for you guys here as I get closer to those pages. All right, so you can see here that on that background, you can see quite a bit of what's underneath of it, and I definitely wanted to have that feeling. I went ahead and did the B page also, so B, blue, of course. And what I did there real quick was I sprayed some water down onto the wet acrylic paints, and as you kind of plop your napkin, we're not dragging the napkin, we're plopping it, plop plop plop. What happens is that it'll pick up the paint in droplets, and I discovered that technique on the background challenge in April, and so I kind of love having these fun backgrounds like that. So all right, now we're back in our book again, and the color is a little bit too blue. And I wanted some more of the dots in the green than, what was in the, to have it similar to the blue side. So I just put a little extra aqua on here. Now here I'm using my India ink. And our basic supplies for this are going to be India ink, gel pens, and acrylic paints. Maybe some Stabilo as we go along. But on this first page I didn't use it at all. What I'm doing here is I'm doing kind of a quick border, and I have purposely made the border wonky, and there I'm showing you how those pens work. With India ink, you can really, you get some ink into that little well, and you can make some really fun lines. Notice how I'm holding the pen. This is meant to be not perfect. And you can do this also with your non-dominant hand. And it's really kind of freed me up. Now this was somewhat inspired by Deb Weirs, W-E-I-R-S. She has some online tutorials at carabolic.art.com. And if I remember, I will put the link for that down into the description. She is a really cool artist, and just a disclaimer, I haven't watched all of the lessons that I purchased. I only kind of watched her little quick drawing thing, and so she does do this loosely held pen technique, which I think is great. She has a lot of fun and whimsy in her paintings, but her paintings are definitely different from what I'm producing here. She's I love her style, truly do. But I'm not trying to copy it or emulate it. I'm being inspired by it. So that's why I have not watched the rest of the series on that. So my gel pen is a Signo. I have it down in the Amazon links. Excuse me. I have the white Signo and a black Signo, and I use medium point. And these pens are actually water soluble, somewhat. And when they're done over acrylic like this, they move quite a bit more. So I'm just kind of doing some basic shading with this, like you saw in Wednesday's project. I showed you pretty closely how we can really move that ink around. Of course, though, that was with the mixed media pad. So here, when we come into the book, and the gesso is to create a nice, it's kind of to preserve the pages with all of the acrylic ink that we're going to be or acrylic paint that we're putting on top of it. And I feel like I'm kind of talking in circles. This is a little bit harder because it's such a longer video, but okay. I got the basic drawing done. I got the basic shading done under the nose, under the mouth, the cheeks. Think about some of those makeup tutorials that you can find on YouTube. So if you find a makeup tutorial where they're doing really heavy contouring, that's where you're going to want to do your shading at, and it'll help you to create circular, to make it more three-dimensional instead of, just two-dimensional. So this is kind of Deb Weirs. She uses these really bright lip colors, and I thought, well, that'll be fun. I did have to kind of tone it back a little bit, and then I used, that's a scarlet red. I'm using my Arteza acrylic paints. And now when you're shading an apple, you have to create a highlight and a low light. And that's what I was doing here. But of course this pink color is kind of the medium tone. On lips, again, you have to think about your highlights and your lowlights. So where your lips come together is actually a bit of a shadow. And, so that's how you create dimension within your lips. Here I'm taking a little bit of gesso, and I'm going into the whites of the eyes. And here I'm going to go do the eye color. And this yellow was an interesting choice. Again, that's kind of inspired by Deb Weirs. She has such a great effect with hers. And again, if you can find her on Instagram also. And, her paintings are vastly different from this. So you saw me put some white gesso there on the side of his face. I was basically trying to define his face a little bit more because it got a little bit scribbly. And then the white wasn't looking right, so I went back in with the aqua and again tried to define his face and still just kind of working with that background. And what I decided was that it needed to be, more in the shadows instead of in the brights. So I'm taking, I think it was a Prussian blue or ultramarine blue, a darker blue, and just putting it over the top of the green. Again, I'm trying to create a little bit of a shadowy color back there. You don't have to go with aqua. You don't have to, this is just for your inspiration. Do whatever makes you happy. And if you don't want to paint, you can absolutely 100% do collage. You can, do your ABCs on flowers or birds or, those things would be really cool too. So while that paint was still a little bit wet, I went ahead and sprayed some water on it, and then I'm pulling it up and then it pulled up too much of the paint, and then I have to go back in and bring in a little bit more paint. And I think I probably spray water on it one more time and redo it before it's totally finished. But all right, so I'm like, okay, what color is his hair? His hair needs some color. I'm like, well, he's got to be a ginger, especially against that green background. It just kind of felt good. It's a good contrasting color for the page. Red is the opposite of green, and then orange, of course, is there in that triad, and orange is the opposite of blue. So, it's what's going to create a dynamic composition. And I was liking that orange color so much that I went ahead and put it in his little shirt. Now, as you can see, I'm doing very quick strokes with this. I'm leaving the brush marks. I'm not doing solid colors. I think it adds to this technique. When I'd be doing a big landscape painting, I would, I used to be a lot more, smooth about things, and now I can kind of go with a little bit more abstract feeling and a looser feeling, and I do like that. So what I'm doing here now is mixing a little bit of gesso in with my green aqua paint. That's the background color. And I'm trying to bring some highlights onto the flat part of his forehead. And again, contouring his nose. I'm, giving him a little... I probably shouldn't have done it right underneath the apple there on the nostril. But, I had to play with these shadows a little bit. It was challenging to make it look the way I wanted to. But I really love the fact that as I kept layering, it kept getting better. And at the end, I think it's just a lot of fun. See how I just did those 5 strokes across the top of his forehead? That's what I'm talking about. You don't have to be perfect with these things. And that's what I really like about this project. I'm trying to loosen up. Now, this painting probably did take me 3 hours or so. But, it was worth it. It'll be a really cool book in the end. So, I think... Oh, okay, so what we come up with next is... Dun dun dun! So we got apple of his eye and ants in his pants. So the ants in pants. So if you saw Wednesday's video, you got to see me work on the little ant guy. And I'm just blocking in some real simple shapes. It's 2 circles, a couple rectangles. I wanted him to have cuffs. I want him to kind of have this 70s style belt. And there, I'm just making some fun eyes on him. A cool little nose, little line for a mouth. Simple little guy. Now we're building up the arms a bit. I'm going to give him a belt. Should put a bigger belt buckle on him. But ants in pants. Oh, then I decided I wanted him to do a peace sign. So I've got a little practice sheet there. I practiced it before I put in my book because I was like, oh, I just spent all this time on this drawing. So I practiced it before I put it in the book, and that's super cool. That was another metaphor I was thinking about, was doing a worm in his ear. Put a worm in your ear, which I still think would be cute, but I didn't think it needed it in the end. So as you can see too with that background, guys, I did blue it down just a little bit more, and I probably did that off camera. So I'm taking just to get a bit of gesso on my paintbrush, and I'm just doing this to kind of lighten him up a little bit because he's in the shadows there, and I want to be able to build up the red ant color over the top of him. And sometimes if you put a quick layer of gesso down first and let that dry a bit, it really helps for the paint you know, if a paint is even the least bit opaque, transparent, I'm sorry, if the paint is a little bit transparent, if you have white underneath of it, it will show up brighter. So, of course, his face got really dark right there. Just kind of taking the same red that I had in the apple and in his lips. But I think I went with the darkest one first, and then I'll go through and build up the colors on him too. And here I'm trying to adjust his lips just a little bit. They looked a little not quite right, but they're very close. What was difficult about this was the light sources were a little bit off, and so trying to make all of that work was interesting. So here I'm bringing in the highlights and trying not to mess things up, of course. And then I'm thinking, what color would his pants be? I'm like, oh, of course, he'll be wearing pink hot pants. Because he's a 70s ant for some reason. I have no idea. It just looked like a fun color, and that's what I went with. Just trying to make it as fun as I possibly could. You know, thinking of a child looking at the book and giggling. That's what I want. I want something happy. So here I'm just building up his color again. This is a third red color, and you know, playing with the layers, trying to get everything to look as good as I can. All right. Oh, we're doing a little bit of yellow orange again in the eyes, and then I'm like, oh, that's a great color. So there's the fourth color that I'm doing over the ant, and that brighter color will bring those things more forward. And you know, even in a really small area, you got to think about your color rules, and it'll really help your paintings. Color rules are pretty simple. Well, they're not really simple, but your most intense colors will come forward the most, and that's what we want. We wanted his little nose to come forward. So now the boots get some detail. We get some shoelaces, and now I'm bringing in the highest highlight color, getting his eyes done, and bringing in some more highlights to his pants. Again, I have a tendency to work from darks to lights. I think it really helps when I'm painting to be able to adjust those colors. Oop, there's his belly button. There's his smile. Look how cute he is. And he's got to have a white belt because he's a 70s ant. And then we're just kind of playing with getting some more highlights on there. What's next? Okay, so since we can't erase, we go back in with our original background color and we clean up the edges. That's what we're doing here, is we're just cleaning up the edges, defining his hands. Had a little bit too much paint on the brush, so I just kind of I'm taking paint directly out of the tube, which I don't often do, but in this case it really worked out well to do it that way. Again, just sharpening all the lines, because I wanted him to be really defined, and that was the best way to do it. And bringing in a couple more highlights, just the tiniest of adjustments. Now we're coming in with our black gel pen, our Signo. And again, the links for all of the supplies are down in the description. And anytime you use those, guys, I do get a small commission, so it really does help out me and the channel if you do use those Amazon links and the Arteza links. Be sure to leave a comment on what I should make with a bee metaphor. All right, guys, have a great day. Bye-bye.